What's up everybody, my name's Andy and welcome to Kit Guru. Last year, Razer made some of my all-time favourite mice, the Viper and the Viper Ultimate. If you haven't seen my videos of those, then make sure to check them out here and on kitguru.net. The problem with those mice was they were a little bit pricey, going up to £150 for the Ultimate, and this made it pretty much inaccessible for a lot of people. The Viper had a more manageable price point, even that was still high for some. Well, it's 2020 now, and Razer wants to share the Viper's love with everybody with their brand new Viper Mini. Now this little guy is physically smaller than the previous models, but it also has an insanely affordable price point compared to its bigger, older brothers. Spoiler alert, you're getting some serious mouse here for not so serious cash. Released in March, the Viper Mini has an RRP of $39.99 here in the UK, and that is 50% cheaper than the original Viper. So surely Razer have had to make some serious sacrifices here, right? Well, let's find out. Aesthetically, you can see it's almost identical to the previous Vipers, but there are some differences throughout the design. There are several changes here to the Mini that I noticed straight off the bat when compared to the other models. The Mini is, of course, well, Mini, it's much smaller. They've essentially just shrank the previous design down, and I'm really glad aesthetically because it's almost identical, and I love the blackout aesthetics, the curves, the angles, and even the gloss accents of the Viper. And if you know me, then you know I don't really like gloss accents. Here we have a molded left and right button that are separate from the main shell with an aggressive angled design floating above a gloss border. Now this is similar to the previous models, but there is no slope towards the main shell, which is found on the Ultimate. This gives it a more rounded look, which is more comparable to the original Viper. We also have those gloss accents around the scroll wheel, but as much as I dislike those gloss accents, they aren't really an issue here because you're not really going to touch them that much. So that's kind of a good thing. Despite keeping the symmetrical design, this mouse is purely right-handed only, unlike the previous models, which are actually ambidextrous. And because of this, there's no forward and back buttons on the right-hand side, and instead we just have them on the left-hand side. Now this gives us a total of 6 programmable buttons, whereas the other Vipers have 8. These buttons do protrude slightly more than the other models that actually had a flusher fit. Another difference here is the lack of textured rubberized grips. Instead, we just have smooth plastic. Now, I absolutely love the grips on the previous models, and in general, I prefer rubber grips anyway. However, since the Mini is so small and it's super lightweight at just 61 grams, I actually think they've made the right move here. This kind of minimizes the cost, I imagine, in manufacturing, which in turn keeps the cost down for us to purchase. With such a light design, there's no need for the grips anyway. No matter how long I used the Mini, I didn't lose any grip or got too sweaty or anything like that. And don't worry about flexing either, because Razer have refined their shells to be twice as stiff as before, and this certainly gives the Mini a solid feel, and the build quality is absolutely fantastic. There's no sharp edges in sight. Despite the small size, they've opted for a full-size scroll wheel, and I'm actually really thankful they've done this because it doesn't feel like a toy or a gimmick mouse at all when in comparison to the, much more expensive brothers. The scroll wheel is slightly bigger than the one found on the Viper Ultimate, but it is slightly smaller than the one found on the original Viper. That's pretty interesting. It's got a little less resistance than the others, but it still feels quality and there's no rattle at all. Along with the classic Razer triple head RGB logo, we now have an additional RGB zone, and I'm a huge fan of this. This new zone spans the bottom edge of the mouse, just where the shell overhangs the base. This gives a lovely glow on your mouse mat, and it's still subtle and it keeps that classy design. Both RGB zones are capable of 16.8 million colors, and they're super vibrant. The only difference here is actually the Viper Mini. You can see the outline of the logo on the back shell, whereas on the Viper and the Viper Ultimate, it's actually inset behind the shell's body. I wish they'd included this new zone on the previous models, as I'm a huge fan of RGB when it's done right. Of course, these two zones can be adjusted via the software. One huge change on the Mini is the location of the DPI button. The other Vipers have a button on the base so you can set your DPI and not have to worry about accidentally switching it, whereas here we have a little square button between the left and right clicks instead. Due to the Mini being so small, I never actually found this to be an issue either. I didn't find myself accidentally clicking it at all. I'm a set it and forget it kind of player, so 99% of the time I stick with the same DPI. But if you do like to switch frequently, then you're going to prefer the Mini anyway, because you won't actually have to pick the mouse up, turn it over, press the button and put it back down. So you can keep your eyes on the action and just move your finger and you're done. And this makes it a lot easier. We have a non-detachable cable, and they've managed to keep the same Speedflex design found on the original Viper. Now this cable is braided, but it's super flexible and it also minimizes drag because it's so lightweight. I'm a fan of this cable because also the kinks are easily removed. On the base of the mouse, we have two large 100% PTFE glide pads, which make the Mini super smooth on any mouse surface. And again, that's nice to see considering the price point. Since the Mini is so small, Razer recommends this for gamers with small or medium-sized hands with a preferred grip style of either claw or fingertip. Now I'd have to agree with them here, as it is much smaller than your average mouse. For me, the size is actually perfect, and after using it exclusively, I found the other Vipers to feel huge and heavy in comparison. Even though they're actually not, they are lightweight and compact, but you know, in comparison, this one is a lot smaller. Now I have medium-sized hands and my preference is claw grip, so the Mini was absolutely perfect for me. And I found I had increased control whilst playing FPS games with a low DPI setting with larger mouse movements. Fingertip grip also felt great, and palm grip, even though it was kind of possible, it didn't really feel great at all for me. If you're purchasing this for your younger relatives or children, or you know, just someone with small hands, then you'll find this to be perfect. If you're worried about whether or not this mouse would be too small for you, don't worry, this is how you find out. Measure your hand from the base of your hand up to the tip of your middle finger, and if this number is greater than 20 centimeters or 7.9 inches, then yes, you're probably better off looking at the older brothers, the other Vipers, or an alternative budget mouse. If your hand is the same size or smaller than this number, then you're going to be absolutely fine. And for reference, my hand size, my right hand size, is 18 centimeters. Let's check out some features. So despite the incredible price point, I'm surprised to see Razer have kept optical switches in this mouse. This is excellent, as optical switches are much faster at sending input signals whilst having no debounce delay. Mechanical switches send signals via metal contacts, whereas optical switches have no physical contact. Instead, there's an infrared light beam that is cut when the button is pressed, and this makes the response instantaneous. Now Razer do state that these have a response time of 0.2 milliseconds, which is 3 times faster than traditional mechanical switches, and in use they do not disappoint. No matter what I tested them with, general use or hardcore gaming sessions, I never felt like my commands were being bottlenecked at all. These feel identical to the other Viper switches, but these do have less lifespan at just 50 million clicks instead of 70 million, but that's still nothing to, you know, turn your nose up at. Of course, at this price point, we are going to get a lesser grade sensor, but it is still optical with specs that you can't turn your nose up at either. We have a respectable and totally usable max DPI of 8.5 thousand, and I've never personally used anything above 5,000 DPI anyway, and I always use much lower whilst playing FPS games. We have 300 IPS and 35G acceleration, and yes, the Viper, the original Viper, has 450 IPS and 50G, and the Ultimate has 650 IPS and 50G, but the Mini specs are still impressive. And one thing I found strange was the lack of polling rate details. Admittedly, this got me worrying, and I thought that this may be the biggest downfall of this mouse, because I couldn't find out the specs on the website, on the box, or pretty much anywhere. However, I am happy to confirm that the Mini does indeed have a 1000 Hz polling rate. You're only presented with this information when opening the software, which leads us nicely into the software, so let's do just that. First of all, you want to download the latest version of Synapse and check for updates. After that, you'll see Viper Mini on the dashboard. Clicking that will open 4 tabs along the top. Now, the first tab is for customizing your 6 programmable buttons. There's a wide range of options here, and I'm really glad to see that they're still programmable and you actually have the same options as the other mice. Next is the performance tab. Here you can enable or disable DPI stages. So if there's only 2 that you like using, you can do that, or you can have all 5 and adjust them accordingly. Underneath that is where we find that polling rate option. The next tab is lighting. You can set brightness on and off, when to switch off the lighting, and many preset quick effects for the RGB as well. If you have other Razer products, then you can go to the advanced section and you can choose loads of different effects and colorways which you can match up with your other products. The last tab is for calibrating your mouse surface via a drop down from all of Razer's current surfaces. Now overall, this software is super easy to use, it's very clean and very straightforward. Anyone will be able to use it. I'm a big fan. So gaming on the Viper Mini did not disappoint at all. Of course, I did play Call of Duty Modern Warfare as it requires accuracy and speed. Now, I quickly forgot that I was even using a budget mouse, as it did everything I wanted it to. Every movement, every click was precise and accurate. The super lightweight design and Speedflex cable made this a very nice mouse to use, and honestly, I have to say it, I think the Viper design is my favorite mouse shape ever made. It's super comfortable, and the Mini right up there with the bigger brothers. Overall, as you've probably noticed throughout this review, I'm actually blown away by the Viper Mini by Razer. They've done an incredible job of making a top performance mouse, which is also a budget mouse, without making any big sacrifices to build quality, feel, usability, and of course keeping it affordable to pretty much everyone. If you have medium or small hands and are looking for a sturdy mouse, whether it's just for travel or your daily driver, then I 100% recommend that you look at the Viper Mini before anything else. What do you guys think of the Viper Mini? Do you think it's the best budget mouse, or do you have something else that you'd rather go for? Let us know down in the comments. If you've liked this video, hit the thumbs up, hit that subscribe, ring the notification bell, check out our merchandise down below, and check out our website daily for tech news. I've been Andy, this is Kit Guru, and I'll see you in the next one. Thank you for watching.